Now, to speak more about the Rob Reiner murder case is criminal defense attorney Elmira Yousufi. Good evening, Elmira. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You and I just watched that latest story together, details about the alleged murders on Sunday, and Nick Reiner made his first court appearance yesterday. He did not enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. So moving forward, I understand his arraignment is continued to January 7th. But let's talk about those two charges, the 2 counts of first-degree murder. What do these charges carry?
So the charges carry 2 possible sentences, either life without the possibility of parole or potentially even the death penalty. Despite the fact that the state of California does have a moratorium on the death penalty, that could change in the future depending on who the governor is and how the laws change. So even if someone gets the death penalty, maybe they won't be subjected to it, but they might be in a few years down the road.
Yeah. The last few days, what evidence have you seen so far that kind of leads towards life in prison without the possibility of parole?
Yeah, so there have been some facts that have come out that lead most likely the DA to file the first-degree murder charges. For example, the fact that the cause of death very likely were the stabbing injuries, likely due to a knife. So if you're stabbing somebody with a knife, you tend to have a specific intent of trying to harm or potentially kill that person. You also have the fact that he maybe attempted to clean up, and the evidence of that is what they found at the hotel room that he checked into. There was blood in the bathroom, there was blood on the bed. So those are some of the things that the district attorney will look at, and some of the things that happened before the murder, this, apparent Hollywood party where people said that there were some arguments between the father and the son. So these are the things that the district attorney looks at to show things like motive and specific intent.
Yeah. We appreciate you weighing in on this as a criminal defense attorney, and the criminal defense attorney who is representing Nick Reiner is Alan Jackson. He is a celebrity attorney, well known. He has represented Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, and also the recent murder trial with Karen Reed, and she was a non-celebrity in Boston, and there was the trial where she was acquitted, and then the retrial was acquitted. We just heard remarks from Alan Jackson yesterday saying that this case is very complex with some serious issues. As a criminal defense attorney, what could his approach be on this case as far as the charges that he's facing, the possibility of life in prison without the possibility of parole?
My guess would be that Mr. Jackson is likely looking at the long history of mental health issues that Nick Reiner has. So it's not a surprise to the public that this is a young man that has suffered with some substance abuse issues. I believe there's a report that he's been in and out of rehab 17 times. So that's something definitely that he's going to explore to see if that could challenge maybe that first-degree murder charge and potentially even come up with an insanity defense.
Yeah, let's weigh in more on that. Looking at Nick Reiner's struggles throughout the years, if Alan Jackson uses those serious issues, how much would that weigh on sentencing? For example, could they knock off life in prison with a possibility with parole and just have him life in prison?
Yeah, so there's
with the possibility of parole.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that this can happen. If he goes down the insanity path, that would be not guilty by reason of insanity. So there would be no criminal sentence. It would be more so of a commute to a hospital and potentially for the rest of his life. But insanity defenses are extremely rare to, first off, even provide as a defense, and then even more rare to actually be successful with that. The alternative route that the attorney can take is potentially trying to do something to get a lesser degree to the first-degree murder, so potentially a second-degree murder. First degree, it's 25 to life. Second degree, it's 15 to life. So with a second-degree murder charge, yes, you can be sentenced to life in prison, but there's a possibility that there could be a time in the future that he could potentially get out on parole.
How long do you think this case would take? Usually in cases like this, it could take up to 2 years to even get into the courtroom and have a jury.
I would say a good several years. I mean, even to get to the preliminary hearing is going to be, I would estimate, at least a year. If there are that mental health component then that also needs to be litigated. Both sides would get experts. There would have to be some sort of psychological evaluations, and these things do take a lot of time. And they also need to first figure out if he's even competent to stand trial. That could be a potential issue that delays this process.
Is there a similar case to this? I know when this happened on Sunday, many people that I've spoken to, they were saying it was very similar to the Menendez brothers.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and people are also speculating on whether or not the defense attorney could potentially create a defense narrative similar to the Menendez brothers of maybe there was something happening behind the scenes that the public wasn't aware of. Maybe there was some sort of abuse by the parent, or at least that may be something that Nick Reiner may bring up as a possible defense. However, there does seem to be a stark contrast because, as we know, with Nick Reiner's father, he's a beloved director, and you know, seems to have a very positive, you know, reputation in the community. So I think that would be a hard sell because he's had such a long-standing reputation in the community.
We appreciate you being here, Elmira Yousufi, weighing in on the Reiner murder case. But the next hearing will be January 7th, and we'll be staying on top of that. We would love to have you back to discuss.
Would love to be back.
Thank you.